Hi, Sebnem, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Great. So we start in 1 minute.
Oh, okay. So that's good. I just realized I wanted to join earlier. Okay, but that's fine.
Hello, Sebnem.
Hey. Okay, all good. I
Yeah,
just saw you.
I just dropped a message, just double check, but
Mhm.
good to see you.
Yes, thank you. Same.
So, hi, welcome everybody to Token System webinar series. We are very happy to have so many of you joining us today at the second webinar session, Design and Development of Token Systems. Can you all hear me well? Yes, I think. My name is Stefania Artusi, and I'm BerChain Association Manager. We are a non-profit, member-led association based in Berlin, promoting and connecting the local Berlin blockchain ecosystem. Today's event is Token Systems, which is a series of weekly webinars running through this April to explore in-depth token-based systems in different tracks. This webinar episode will tackle a few aspects of design and development in token systems, such as the impact of governance token design in platform strategies and token engineering practice. And then we'll have next Friday an economy session, which is very worth attending for those who are into DeFi and NFTs. And a last legal engineering session on April 30th. For those who are interested, I will be pasting more info on the chat. The session will be recorded and will be also streamed on YouTube. To ask a question, please use the Q&A function in the bottom of the screen. This will allow you and your question to be seen by the panelists and be answered towards the end of the session. We will have a live Q&A at 5:50 for this episode. It's my pleasure now to introduce the speakers for today. Renzo D'Andrea, user experience researcher and platform designer at Change the River. Hello, Renzo.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Stefania. Thank you for having me today.
And you are presenting the impact of governance token design in platform strategies. And Sebnem Rusitchka, ecosystem architect at Boson Protocol. Hi, Sebnem.
Hello. Hi. Looking forward to the session. Thanks for inviting me. And it's a great series that you put together.
Thank you. So you will be walking us through the token engineering practice.
Exactly.
So I guess welcome everybody, and so I will hand the word to Renzo, who is the first presenting.
Thank you. I just shared the screen just to confirm that you can see my screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So once again, thank you for having me, and thank you, BerChain, for organizing this valuable session about token system. Just a quick intro why I'm here. So as a UX and service designer, I work in teams to support the adoption of tools to turn strategies into actionable insights. So since 2018, my approach and work with distributed ledger technologies has been focusing on action research, shaping perspectives towards user adoption, and creating tools for structured experimentation. So that happened in a couple of startups. I designed educational workshop about blockchain, token economics. In 2019, I designed and conducted the first ever user adoption survey in the Berlin blockchain startup ecosystem. So from there, I keep expanding this approach. And this is why today I will use an approach governance token design with platform strategies, because just 1 year ago, I joined the collaborative research experiment with the platform design toolkit community. And this since making talk aims for applying critical thinking, combining that methodologies and some research inside activities about governance token design from Common Stack. We also experimented actually with Common Stack in July, DAOS and governance innovation. So now moving forward, I think these are the agenda or dynamic context we look today. The evolution of marketplace platforms, the emergence of new governance spectrum, the Common Stack and conviction voting, and we just link this to DAOs and a final reflection. So let's start from this. So I will draw some insight from the white paper, the new foundation of platform ecosystem thinking, that just took some insight and reframe it. And this dynamic framework in front of you is to zooming in and zooming out on various aspects on systemic approach. So on the outside circle, you can see these trends they are playing out. So we see the evolving technosphere, we see our ever-threatened biosphere, and our evolving, almost not easy to catch, the news sphere, the culture. So in the middle, all these contexts come together in our continuous organizing. So therefore, now for the organizational design of the 21st century, so there is these 4 drivers that I list on the right. So the impact of market adaptability means that the consequence of continuously unbundling of the firm, of the teams, of organization, retooling themselves. They see also the decline of bureaucratic system. Therefore, a new governance spectrum is needed. And the hyperlocal scale means down to the household and the community levels, this gains more prominence for regional, local economies and society that seems to be happening more and more, accelerating as a consequence of also the driver of shortened and more resilient supply chain. And eventually, sense-making process is needed in this new space of organizing, where I think we need to unleash our unique potential as humans to create this new innovation. So therefore, these 4 drivers are just listed, as Lisa Gansky said, is in this dynamic background of no more and not yet. So no more means the bureaucratic system, the current bureaucratic system, does not match anymore with ambiguity and complexity that we prompt to create new ways to transcend the current organizational paradigms. This is about controlling nature rather than contributing to the wholeness of system. And not yet means that we are on the cusp of new ways of organizing value creation and distribution, where small units, small local units especially, are empowered to pursue a nimble leadership under an umbrella of new principles. So, and one example that we see that what is coming, so a new system of trust with a new layer that is, I would say, this self-enforcement agreement, such as smart contracts, So this different paradigm of collaboration means that instead of exploiting nature, we need to just collaborate for the wholeness of the nature. So now, this is why I'm gonna just draw your attention on two aspects of the market evolution. So on the left, you can see this triangle. Again, these are very important elements from the methodologies, the platform design toolkit, just one of the methodologies that I decided to focus on that talk about market pervasivity. This means that there is an impact of the market adaptability that is the consequence of this unbundling of the firm that I mentioned. So this means that with saturated horizontal marketplace, so entrepreneurship is required to unlock new opportunities by replicating and creating new opportunities. So on the left, you can see these three layers where markets basically become, so they transform themselves digitally across these three layers. On the right side, verticalization means that, so from the horizontal to the verticalization, so there is a need to create a different amount of value and make a difference as a consequence. So that we see a shift towards more niche, more market opportunities, smaller for specialized work. You can think of education, and they are more transactional and more development value, where the growth drives network effects and adds depth to the marketplace choices. So one example to mention is, for example, one app called Slice is a mobile app, a website where diners can order a customized pizza from their local independent pizzeria. So this one example of verticalization trend to overcome the lowest common denominator. So another, I think, effect of this verticalization is also this managed and unmanaged markets. So another example is Miro, MERRO, is a platform that supports photographers and producers to connect with brands and other customers and create a seamless service. So it's an example of marketplace where the platform pre-select the best supplier for the job to be done. So this is an example of the tendency, especially in the B2B marketplace context. So these two aspects of the marketplace I'm highlighting here also, I think, want to bring your attention to an inflection point that we all experience. In means that we acknowledge that our living within this new Earth system is characterized by deteriorating ecological condition and the radical unpredictability within a fractured social political system. And also the sense-making challenges that we need to face are multiple. And there is a new dynamics of collaboration across layers. So we see this platform interoperability through shared layers that leverage more towards decentralization and shared processes. So where do we go from here? And this is one example of the methodology I mentioned to you, the focus of the platform as a scalable collaborative agreements. We don't look at platform as interface here for this session. So this is just a way that you can see how this approach, systemic approach, help to advance in the understanding of the market, but we need more cooperative inclusivity through new governance tool. So also you can find the whole toolkit is on Creative Commons, it's open. So, but its impact is to raise awareness and question about looking at the current state of the so-called sharing economy and its limitation. So these four phases from strategic awareness to growth networking also are connected with this two engine. The transaction engine means that the growing need for interaction at the edge of the ecosystem calls for continuously reducing friction. So we saw this in different ways from, let's say, from the website. The websites changed the shops, smartphones supplanted the landlines, cloud supplanted data center. So it's a process starting now to reduce friction through the elimination of unnecessary middlemen. And learning engine stands for a very fundamental engine of growth. So learning process within organization creates these skilled participants, members. They increasingly are interested in its evolution of the platform and governance. So therefore, how could we shift monopolies, centralized resources into a fairer economic landscape through a networked engine? So this leads to just this short moment of reflection in this journey I'm sharing with you. So machine learning and crypto represent these new ways to find meaning and intent, but they effectively are a potential market reset. This quote from Bennett Evans. So now we go towards this new governance spectrum, and we start from these three statements. So cryptocurrency are technology of governance. We need a radical democratization from consent to consensus, and also to stimulate governance innovation. So just to look at why we need to rethink this is also if we consider the voting as a very important tool for participation in proposal. So we see there is traditionally a time-boxed process that we experience. There are limited effectiveness in distributed communities. So in the blockchain space has been experiment in Aragon, and then shows some limitation of the resulting lack of participation means that the critical decisions are being made according to the experiment by just 0.2% of the token holders in some projects, which call into the questions how these tools a stable foundation for future decision-making process. So it is also linked to the work from CommonStack. And this is where I think I want to bring you towards the CommonStack as offers a set of tools that enable a collaborative paradigm towards more egalitarian and democratic structure, enabling an ecosystem of DAOs as decentralized autonomous organization. This takes shape basically thanks to open source templates and process that are continuously redefined. So Ostrom principles are the starting points also the CommonStack took to elaborate more how commons could behave better, but also how this could be scalable also is a question. So I'm focusing just on the governance tools, and from the right side you can see this list of 8 principles, but I'm focusing on the third one. So the participatory decision making is vital. Also to mention that the Token Engineering Commons started working on developing these principles, but from these focus, we go on the conviction voting. So conviction voting is a real-time vote streaming tool. So it's less like a voting, but it's more like a signal processing tool. And it's a novel approach to continuously organizing communities' preferences into discrete decisions, into management of the community resources. So on the left, you see here on the slide, I emphasize the plurality of preferences. And imagine this, a group of people want to coordinate a collective decision. There are social dynamics such as discussion, signaling, even changing one's mindset based on the feedback from others' input play an important role in these processes. So the conviction voting properties are to support this asynchronous interaction and provides visibility into likely outcomes prior to the resolution. And this is to serve a driver of debate and healthy forms of coalition building. So the participants should be able to show support for multiple initiatives. So here, just the key property on the right, but we can go into examples of the conviction body explained. So on the left, you can see the conviction body for discrete proposals. And with proposal, this means the conviction body with proposal have a passing threshold. So when accumulated group conviction passes the required threshold of support, then the proposal passes and the budget is distributed and the funds are distributed for work to begin. So an example of this kind of conviction body, I think you can find in OneHive. I will mention this even later. On the right side, the conviction body in cases for continuous proposal. So there is no discrete threshold in this case, where a proposal terminates. Instead, there is this group sentiment can keep fluctuating up and down between a specific range of perpetuity. I think you can say also dynamic average consensus. So this could suit a community that wishes to have certain aspects of their socioeconomic system to be continuously decided by collective sentiment. So overall, I think we can summarize the conviction voting benefit here. So what is improves and what actually mitigates for governance innovation. So just to mention, this is a tool that continuously expanding and iterated. So now from here, we can link to DAOs. So this list is from the top. So it's about why and how conviction voting could link to decentralized autonomous organization. So why? Because conviction voting could set the scene to enable DAO to thrive, and how is through a better coordination, so real-time collaboration, and equally for the other points. And probably one of the most important is the trigger new forms of entrepreneurship and cooperative, and how to continuous resource flows can unlock new opportunities for cooperative. It means more capital flow, so more resource allocation. So from here, that is I think to set the scene to DAOs as a new social institutions. And so DAOs build on composable modules for governance, fundraising, investing, empowered by mechanisms to distribute financial incentives to those that run the actual transparent infrastructure. So they are similarly essential for the democratization of complex organizing around networks and commons. So here on this list, again, I just want to mention from the technological perspective, DAOs contains these automated components. And so these are creating these feedback loops in sensor networks. But from, let's say, a political, philosophical perspective, the DAO is autonomy, is the sense of self-actualization at organizational level. So now from here, I just want to share some example of DAO tools, infrastructure. So this is not an exhausting list. So you see here, as I mentioned before, One Hive with Argon framework. It's something that has been developed through Common Stack to support the design of the governance system. And also Snapshot is another freshly developed project. And Colony just in February released a soft launch on XDAI for the platform to use DAOs. So from these DAO tools and infrastructure, I think there is another example that could be mentioned here, more from the market perspective. So before I show you this, the market perspective of the business and consumer, so supply and demand. But here, this is an example from block science. So I think it's from the CAD model example, where there is the service provider, the consumer, and the DAO. This replaces the traditional two-sided market. So you can imagine in the normal context of Uber, so this would be equivalent to melting down the company Uber and replacing with the DAO, the match basically the riders and the drivers. So this want to give you a snapshot, let's say, view from above about how the market dynamic will change with DAO and the new governance innovation system. So, and a step further is in the governance innovation to consider negotiation protocols. Negotiation protocols are very important in decentralized governance. So every DAO, let's say, deploys their own set of parameters for consensus formation with its community, infrastructure and use case in mind. So thanks to this formalization, DAOs can evaluate proposal without having to redefine terms of agreement each time. So here is a list of research made by Curve Labs, Prime DAO, Block Science, Token Kitchen. It's a report, interestingly, they talk about this DAOs to DAOs, and want to bring the formalization towards an interorganizational paradigms. Also shows the polycentricity potential. And we can see, I think, use case in mergers, joint ventures, and community swaps. So from here, I think we can go towards the end with some statements of this sense-making session. So platform can become DAOs as a new scalable collaborative agreements through mechanism design based on polycentricity via tokenization. And also this is a part of a quote from a paper about token economics, I think Outlier Ventures. And it's important to consider, again, governance as a constant process rather than end state. Therefore, this concept of a minimum viable governance is very crucial. And also to articulate network principle to all network participants and to reduce the likelihood of misalignment and disagreement between stakeholders at later stages. So as a wrap up, so these are the governance token design implications for platform strategies that I thought to summarize here. So from the top, the idea of shared coordination, infrastructure, emerging and cooperative integration layers. So this means that we need the practice of developing entrepreneurial, ecosystem-centric approach. And this idea of in and out means that letting the nature of the ecosystem dictate the nature of the organization. So the platform itself is not the solution, is the enabler. So also the idea of conviction voting, again, is a new governance tool. This will create more democratic discourse to bring our political system potentially in line with our existing social system. And finally, the final point on the third bullet point is more complex platforms that will entail co-investing and possibly co-managing capital allocation into developing new forms of entrepreneurship are crucial. So these points actually lead to just one more point, how from the triangles that I shared with you, to look at also another part of the analysis of crypto economics as something that multiple layers also represent the systemic approach we need to address in governance innovation. So finally, these are probably the 3 places that I would suggest to engage in the community, from Platform Design Toolkit, the Common Stack, and metagov.org, where you can definitely look more into what I mentioned today. And this is my final statement, and as a reflection with a perspective that I think I would like to share this work that could develop with the communities. And I believe that distributed ledger technologies are social design technologies, and they can shift our individualism into collectivism. And this means to generate inclusivity and diversity with micro-entrepreneurship. So this means new forms of governance are the vessel of the 21st century human development, the ecosystem platform economy. So with this, I've stopped here and looking forward for the Q&A, and I let the floor to Sebnem and Stefania.
Thank you, Renzo, for this presentation. We can hand over the word to Sebnem now.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so I can share my screen right away, right?
Yeah. I just want to remind the participants that you can always drop your questions in the Q&A section in the bottom. So we will answer those questions at the end of the session. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So it was a great presentation, and I have already questions. But as Renzo said, we're in the sense-making phase, right? And that's also something that it drew me after I don't know, definitely 2.5 years of finding path in this emerging paradigm, and then realizing that we need to learn and that we need to share that learning at a much faster pace than organizational silos can do. And basically last year the whole token engineering community made a one direction towards offering more knowledge exchange opportunities. And that's basically also where I took a more active role in actually making sense of this, of all of this. My background, I'm a computer scientist who learned engineering from Siemens engineers. And basically, I was always in distributed systems, peer-to-peer protocols. So I come from the techie world, and the one thing that really, opened my eyes was this what Renzo described, was that this technology is not just a technology; it's really it has a very strong social component, and techies like me had to learn to appreciate that, to find their ways to handle it, right? It's not just I get the requirements and I hack it down and the system is going to run as it was designed by me. It's a much more complex adaptive system than software systems are anyways. So these decentralized financial models, decentralized business models that we see can happen also require a decentralized or participatory co-creation and design practices. And this is where basically these any toolkit, any design thinking that was going into that direction, into ecosystems, and any design thinking that combines systems thinking. These are the areas where the sense making is happening. And what I focus on is really how can we make that now, how can we create this common language between all of us? And that's basically what leads to token engineering practice. And I would say it has made a huge usability leap this past year with respect to our toolings, etc. But it's still, we're not at a pace where we can say we have a set practice and this is it. But I just want to share with you, I said, like, what is token engineering? What is the process? Computer-aided design is part of it because it's so complex and we want to see the dynamics. It doesn't just play out in our heads or in Excel files or on roadmaps. It's really a network, and we want to use computers to aid us in the design, in our sense-making process as well. Design matters. Tools will always be tools. Like, we will need these design methods that help us to formulate the model that then computers help us to simulate. That's that, and I'll quickly share 2 examples, really just quickly. I was when I realized I only have 20 minutes, I'm like, oh, what did I promise here? But I want to give you the overview, and then just end with a list of where you can learn and apply, especially if you're coming from a business architect, domain architect, or a programmer background, where you can learn how to form this common language and how to use these tools in the design and development of token ecosystems. So token engineering is this new transdisciplinary art of doing science and engineering. And as this saying, or as this book says by Great Hemming, this art is about learning to learn. And it couldn't be more true for where did we find ourselves, right? Crypto economics really draws from many disciplines. Not everything in all of these disciplines is important, but it draws from every discipline models that exist in those disciplines about coordination and about resource allocation. Basically, how do we make decisions? And governance, as Renzo said, is a lot about, or all about steering and decision making. So, and token engineering is basically making that process accessible to the entire organization through the aid of tools, toolkits, and canvases, but most importantly also computer models and simulations. So these are all the disciplines that give input, and we need to find a way to create our common language. And there is one that is actually super helpful for getting to models at the very least. This is where computer aids in the design in this entire token engineering process, if you will. In the early stages, we have the ecosystem design and the dynamic and economic modeling. As said, this part can draw from every discipline that has a different lens on this coordination and decision making or resource allocation problem. And basically, from those models, we can design conceptual models. From those mathematical models, which we can verify and simulate, and all of that part is where computer design can add in the process. And after that, basically, it goes to, of course, the implementation, operation, and the data that we get from the operation can then feed back into the computer-aided design phase. Basically, this is a pipeline, if you will, but a very with feedback loops. And one important thing, design really matters. As in every pipeline, garbage in, garbage out. Like the computers are not going to fix any broken assumptions for you. But a useful model can show you that your assumptions don't play out over the long run or in the complexity, in the dynamics of the interaction. So design matters, and that's why, especially in decentralized ecosystem, participatory networks where intermediaries are said to be replaced, it is really important that this design happens, in a co-creative manner. And it's just not left to the token engineers who say, okay, I know what to do. I can think rationally. I'm a scientist. And if you leave that mind to itself, it will maximize towards efficacy and power, towards things that can be measured easily without requiring the wisdom as what to do with that power. And that's something we really want to, or I personally, because it was the biggest insight for me being a techie, I really want to share that insight, improve it, and that's what we do in Token Engineering Academy. There's this community sourced and community funded book, A Hitchhiker's Guide to Token Engineering, where we also start addressing this important side of it. But then, as said, as a signpost, that the assumptions that we pour and the hypotheses that we pour into the token design, that we know where they come from, that they come from first principles. When we get it right, then computers add in the whole system design. But again, the whole narrative, the purpose of the ecosystem, the objectives that you then can draw from that, what type of who you need in the system to help that purpose come alive, and what type of mechanisms, incentive mechanisms, as well as platform product, like this environment design, you can add as an engineer, software engineer, systems engineer. This all plays into this definition and redefinition part. And from that, we draw the conceptual model. When people look at it and can see are on the same page from different perspectives, they can then formulate questions, hypotheses, and scenarios, which we then can take into this whole automated processes and tooling, and actually create experiments, get the data from deployment, and inform this whole process of defining this token model. And the most important part is through more innovative, adding more innovative pieces to this puzzle, we can truly make this process co-creative, participatory, and not just given into the hands of techies, because we don't want these new systems become technocracies. If we are designing participatory systems, we need to make the design of it participatory as well. Again, computers can help us. Games are a great simulation tool to make things easily accessible, especially the dynamics, etc. And can people test it? These are the things we get excited about and want to pour together. But before getting there, even there's a in-between step, this common visual language, which we call value flow diagrams. And these, to my knowledge, came from Zargam, Michael Zargam of Log Science, who is the systems engineer, having background in robotics and all, also used the systems thinking and the typical descriptions of dynamics in systems thinking in a way that then can be used as input or as a description, as an in-between step towards more formalized and mathematical models that can be simulated. So this common visual language may seem similar to software engineers who are used to, speak in those visual languages, like UML diagrams, etc. But there's one caveat: this is really about dynamics, and you don't maybe believe it at first when you see it because it seems very simple. But that's the beauty of a useful modeling tool, that you can simply point to the leverage points in the system and show what is important, and especially from our side, where does the incentives and the policies that we're defining algorithmically, where will they be placed, and how do they actually affect the value flows in this tokenized ecosystem? Common language, bridging any language barriers, knowledge silos, sensing and anchoring. It was really, really helpful. It helps in wordsmithing because you need to label things simply, but then you can do it in this sense-making sessions with the entire community. And at the end of it, you do have a specification of this complex dynamic system in those value flows. And from those, one can define scenarios and experiments. And again, get the results or get the information from the deployed system and check back whether those models were holding in deployment. And this is really great. So that was one of the first live tests of from my side, if you will, in an entirely different community and network. And basically you see how a community member, a modeler, and the founder basically got a quick understanding within 1 or 2 sessions about really the dynamics. And then everyone can draw their conclusions and come back and question or can define, for example, these new scenarios that are going into that experiment-driven development. I am going to run out of time. That's why I will probably just give you the tip of the iceberg and say basically these are courses we are designing and open sourcing. And there's this book, as I mentioned, A Hitchhiker's Guide to Token Engineering. It has a whole chapter on token model generation, which explains all of these puzzle pieces that we're putting together, and hopefully it will be a living book or living source of knowledge that we have co-created as a community and going to manage and maintain and improve as a community. But as said, it takes from typical canvases that are used in design thinking, like platform design toolkit, ecosystem design toolkit, design thinking, personas, and so on, and basically uses them and specifies them in a way that people, in such sense-making sessions can come together and actually put down their key assumptions about how the system should behave and why it should exist and why participants are going to actually be in it, what are their motivations, and what can token designers and modelers do to actually enforce this positive sum games, or take care that intrinsic motivations are, for example, not crushed by just throwing tokens at participants, but use the token really for the coordination mechanism. So basically, this whole process helps to define what are the key value stocks, what makes value flow, and whether or not one should define policies to make those value flows into positive sum games and also to show where the system can break, can be attacked, and so on and so forth, and what environmental processes from outside will enact onto the network. This is, for example, a very thorough repository of the grassroots economics community currency model. And block science and Red Cross work together with grassroots economics to really help them with the design of the token model. And it is a great source of description, structuring, and how basically those assumptions have been documented, have been visualized in such a way that after some training, you can see, okay, these are the value stocks, these are the policies that make the stocks grow over time, and this is how it's basically going to get distributed. These parts are the things that the system designers have put in place, and this is how the outside world or the participants going to interact with the designed contracts and designed onboarding platform that grassroots economics offers, or the interface. And again, even if it seems, if you look at it, it's really simple because it's really just the stock, the flow, and the actors who are creating those dynamics. But at the same time, you can really define the mathematical, or indicate the mathematical model that then goes into the specification and simulation implementation. Again, it's cutting edge and it's work in progress. And my goal was always make it more accessible. But it's right, what Zagam always says, it is helpful, but it's hard to teach people to do what feels right. So there is this learning process that in the token engineering community, in CAD/CAD community, and others, we really try to help each other hone that craft, get that experience, and also exchange between new members and experienced members in the community to get these insights flowing. Again, it's about systems dynamics. These value flow diagrams can encode the assumptions and design decisions in a way that people can look at it and actually question. At the same time, combining this with an agent-based model in one framework would really allow us to test and stress test those macro level decisions in token design, smart contract design, etc., by adding basically assumptions and observations about participants' behavior in an agent-based model. So having these two parts to combine is a real superpower. And CAD/CAD actually allows for that. But I don't want to take too much time. Again, you can anytime drop by into the CAD/CAD community service. I have the links in a moment. But here's a short description about how the iterative process it is, basically defining those goals of the token network, then define and adapt those primitives that you can combine to actually generate the patterns that you need. And from that, it has a really very systemic flow into how to create mathematical models and computer models and run simulations. So CAD/CAD is systems dynamics and agent-based models combined. And we also have pretty new, the Token Spice tool from Trend, who developed it within Ocean Protocol, or for simulating Ocean protocols. It's a purely agent-based approach, but in its second iteration, it actually adds EVM agents, which is pretty neat. Basically, you can really plug in your smart contracts and basically the controllable agent decisions which are defined there can be simulated, which is a super exciting enhancement, and the combination of those could also be super, super interesting. So that's why here are the most important links, as all of these is going to be evolving. We have the token engineering community, and we have a Discord server there. We have the academy, ad hoc study groups there. We have the token engineering commons, which is basically the first field trial of the common stack that we are hatching. In that we have tech labs and the Omega working group, which specifically looks into also ethical token engineering, meaning how do we form our assumptions and how do we as token engineers actually point towards ethical issues in those designs as well. We have the CatCat community, a lot of great video materials, really, really hands-on community calls. We have CatCat Edu with online courses. CatCat Bootcamp really is great and gives you all the foundations to finding your way. Ocean Protocol is a great learning base with Ocean Learn, and as said, Token Spice, another agent-based tool one can use to actually plug in the smart contracts logic. And following protocols and communities are the ones I know of, at the very least, who always have a space and need for token engineering, who have really, how do you call it, embraced the token engineering principles and process. This is grassroots economics, Balancer Pool, Gitcoin are doing a whole set of modeling around their Gitcoin funds, Gitcoin grants, sorry. Dada, the Invisible Economy, it's an art collective who actually wants to make value that they're creating visible, but the whole economic part invisible, and make that the engine that drives, but that doesn't drive the people. And Boson Protocol is a very new protocol that actually goes at decentralizing and demonopolizing commerce, which is of course a grand challenge, and they go about it as in a very, very structured and engineering focused process. So it's super good to see that we have come this far, that we have these communities and resources for learning, but also really kick-ass protocols that actually offer challenges and learning and application opportunities of these new skills. With that, I have taken too much time. I'm so sorry, but I look forward to yes, all of the questions that we have.
Great, thank you so much, Sebnem, for this presentation. It's really remarkable the work you are bringing forward also with the token engineering community. We can also leave some now a few minutes for the questions. I'm going to start reading the questions that are in the Q&A section. We have so far one question from Andrew. Hi there, people. Thanks for the great presses. Renzo. So we have a paragraph for Renzo. You mentioned that designing dynamic organizations that changes structures constantly, informed by voting environment and micro-entrepreneurship, adding to this Sebnem, as mentioned, about building flexible and non-technocratic systems that balance out incentives and policies. The question is, does this mean that DAOS as a governance structure will always be changing and unique at any moment?
Good question. Probably I don't have, I try to think to give you a decent answer. I think the DAOs coordination mechanism are for different purposes. So potentially will adjust, thinking about strategic communication, co-funding research, joint venture, all these monetary policies, polycentric governance. I think that the nature is supposed to be versatile. I don't know if it will come at any moment, but definitely something that I will chase as a part of this actual research, and also be happy to to share this point of view with others, such as Sebnem and other professionals in the field, because we need to collaborate to understand. Maybe I can also, there is this Gnosis conditional tokens framework that could kind of help with. I'll drop in the link. Andrew, thank you for the question. That was my best answer at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Maybe just to add to it, certainly, if there is no change needed, keep it. Never change the running system. That would still hold true, because you don't want to change foundational things very often, but you might need to change parameters and adapt to environmental changes. And that's why the goal is, as there is one article from Jeff and Zargam from Common Stack, computer-aided governance. And that's one North Star we're definitely moving toward, that we at the very least have the capabilities to see when change is needed, and then also be able to enact it, design and enact it in a collaborative manner. And that's a huge challenge, of course. If you look at our political systems right now, how hard they have it with just deciding what to do with schools and how to fix this, the system that is complex, adaptive, dynamic. You pull one thing here, and the system does all sort of other things that you weren't expecting. And definitely, we do have the technological foundations to strive for this adaptivity and flexibility. But it doesn't mean that systems in balance will not, or systems which have a stable point won't change. And also you will not change the purpose of the system every day. For example, right, the ground truths will remain or will be changed maybe over the course of decades, right? But again, like I believe one thing to say is the systems will need to have the capability to change or to adapt quickly to changing dynamics. And that means, number one, sensing those dynamics. Number two, ability to create consensus or have the decision capability quickly to adapt. So these feedback loops will be important to have, both from the cyber-physical systems as well as really the social part of the system.
Thank you guys for answering. We have a few more questions and we run out of time. Would you like to stay maybe like 5-10 minutes more to answer the remaining questions?
Sure, from my side.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I will be reading a few other questions. The first one is from Jan Schroeder. This is for Sebnem. Hi, Sebnem. Is there any experience in modeling microeconomic systems which interact with token systems? For example, implementing a stable coin as a regional currency?
Mm-hmm. So that one, I think the community inclusion currencies are the closest that comes to what you mean, right? But if I understand right, you mean with macroeconomics, like the macroeconomic system that I currently live in the region of Bavaria, for example. So how do we get actually the information and data from that? and couple it with a regional currency. That's my understanding. So the closest to that I am aware of is really community inclusion currencies, and that's happening in Kenya. Yes, yeah. So and there basically the macroeconomics is maybe that's why it's happening in Kenya, because basically the information gathering is created anew. And here in our developed economies, we will need to get the data from all these paper-based systems first, and that's going to take a long time, I guess, unless we create those those institutions over the top, like Skype was built over the top of telecoms infrastructure, like that we capture the macroeconomics of whatever community and its region that it's connected to, that we just use our smartphones and whatever data sensing, quantitative or qualitative sensing tools we have, and actually create and capture those macroeconomics without having to go through paper-based existing bureaucratic systems, and then connect that to new tokenized or value representations of a regional community. It is possible.
Yeah. Thank you for the answer. We have another question from Rishi. Can you describe a 5-bullet-point roadmap on how to start designing a token?
I hope the question goes to Renzo.
Tough one. 5. There is I think there's a document I want to share, this Outlier Venture. They maybe this Sebnem. They go through all the phases of the design process, from the approach, the discovery to the design of the tokens. But there are multiple phases. They look at all the I think the multi-layers of tokens. So I think there are 5 phases. I don't know if more than 5. I guess I wouldn't. I wouldn't from the discovery, the classic process, but there is, I think, from the discovery to the strategy, to the analysis, to the validation and testing and prototyping, iterating. These are probably the classic ones.
Yeah. So I am trying to work out one, like this whole token model generation chapter is going at it, but every time someone wants me to put it on one page, I get super how do you call it super stressed out and just scream at people, you can't put it all into one page. But I know exactly what you mean. There are efforts, but whatever it is, I mean, even that one page that said experiment-driven design, someone had to beat it out of me, right? Because the problem is, if we make it sound too simple, then we're going to, harm, make more harm than be useful. It's really, I think, the first thing is learn about systems thinking, and then basically you will more and more let go of this roadmap linear execution mindset. And so my really heartfelt message is that I feel you, that you want to know how to start, but it's like, I'll tell you the way only if you promise not to follow it, but actually acknowledge that these are, systems that we need to design for emergence.
All right. Thank you guys for the answer. And we have a last one from Essen, which I believe be the next speaker at the last legal engineering session at the 3rd of April. Essen, if it's you. Thank you.
Hello, Essen. Yes.
To Renzo, as we are moving to DAO, how do you anticipate the interoperability of DAOs?
Okay, so I try to approach this, as I mentioned in the presentation, is a platform mechanism design. And I try to kind of break down the process or the logic, look at, okay, what is a platform? What is a mechanism, and what's the design process that happens for each branch? And I think this will give me approach towards addressing interoperability and looking into divergency and convergencies. And this kind of zooming in, zooming out will probably, I would like actually to expand on interoperability further with this approach. So that would be the way I would approach the interoperability process.
Okay.
And sorry, before I forget, I just, I think I mentioned to Stefania, I prepared a very short survey that I'm dropping here in the chat, also for me to understand more about what you felt it could be developed. So I'm dropping here in the chat. Oh, sorry, I just did it. No. So I guess now all can see. Can you confirm, Stefania?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I would be really grateful if you could share your feedback, as it's just a free questions. And that would help to develop further the actual research I want to take further.
Great. Thank you so much, then, Sebnem and Renzo, for this insightful presentation and session of token systems. And I want to thank also all the participants that have joined and engaged. And thank you for attending. See you at the next episode.
Thanks a lot, Stefania. Thank you, Sebnem. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.